Hello, everyone. I'm going to turn my camera on. Thank you for joining me today, and welcome to How to Earn More Money with International Tax. I'm Katrina Haynes. I'm excited to be here with you this afternoon for me. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I know a lot of us, since we're tax professionals, are super busy. So I'm going to try to make this as informative and brief as possible. I am going to turn my webcam off just because it helps with streaming, so we'll be able to you won't have to worry about it buffering as much. We are going to do a live Q&A at the end, so if you guys have any questions, feel free. Hello to everyone. I know tax season is stressful for me, so if you get a chance, go ahead and drop on a scale from 1 to 10. I'll say, how stressful has this tax season been so far? It's not that bad yet, but we still have a couple more weeks before I start uh, I don't know. I'm right now. I'm living under a constant lack of sleep and massive amounts of caffeine. So I'll say that's about a 6. At least I'm getting sleep because there have been times. So let me know how this tax season has been for you. Like I said, I'm going to turn the camera off now, but you're going to hear my voice as we jump right in and talk about how to earn more money with international tax. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with me, I do want to introduce myself. So my name is Katrina Haynes, and I'm a CPA with over 25 years of experience. And I've been specializing in U.S. expatriate and foreign national taxation for my entire career. I started at Arthur Anderson in Indianapolis, Indiana, 25 years ago this year. Yes, 25th anniversary this year. I worked there until they closed that office in 2002. And then I worked also for E&Y and Deloitte in their expat tax groups, and Grant Thornton for in their expat tax group as well. For a short period of time, I also worked for Roche Diagnostics as their global mobility tax, their head of global mobility and domestic relocation. I worked there for about a year and then worked for the Coca-Cola company as their global mobility tax manager for about 4 years. Someone asked if they're going to be polling questions. There aren't going to be any polling questions. A copy of the recording and the slides will go out after this, but there's not going to be any polling questions, so you don't have to worry about that. This is more of an informative session. So, but if you do have client specific questions or anything that is a technical question, we're going to do that at the end. I just want to get my information out to you, and then we can talk about that. But I always say about me, my most important job is as a mom to these three little ladies on the screen, all with G names, Gia, Gianna, and Genesis in the order from left to right. So I am here to help take care of them. So if you weren't familiar with me before you received this message, I have been in the last 10 years doing a lot of informational speaking and writing in the expat and foreign national tax space because, as I mentioned, my career began in big four firms. I worked for Anderson, I worked for Deloitte, I worked for E&Y. Grant Thornton is a global firm. It's not big four, but it's still a global firm. And one thing I realized coming out of those firms is the lack of knowledge outside of those firms. So when you're in one of those firms, you get a lot of CPE, you get a lot of CE credit, you get a lot of education as it relates specifically to expat and foreign nationals. We have entire groups that are dedicated to researching. I don't know if Deloitte still does this, but I know at the time that I was there, they would create firm positions. So if you had a question about a position to take on a tax return, we had a whole team that we would run that through, and then we as a firm would take that particular position, um, and they would give us the firm positions to read. So that was always our first go-to, was go to the firm positions. What is the firm saying about this particular subject, and then go from there. Well, when I came out, even when I was working at the Coca-Cola company as the global mobility tax manager, they had education, but a lot of their education was very general, accounting general, tax general. There wasn't anything related to global mobility. And I was the only, there was myself and then my manager who were global mobility tax specific. There was nothing there for us. And so just one day as I was taking a class on CPA Academy, I thought the class was about international taxation, but it ended up being about state to state taxation, which was amazing. It was a great class. But I realized I didn't know if there was a place where people that were outside of the firms could go and learn about expat taxation. And so that's when I started my partnership with CPA Academy, which was about maybe 9 years ago, and I've been teaching with them ever since then. But then my second thought was, how do these expats and foreign nationals who don't have the benefit of being on an assignment program, how do they get the knowledge they need to file proper tax returns? And what I found out very quickly is a lot of them, they either don't, or they are at the mercy of whoever their tax provider was. So at that or is. And so at that particular point in time, I decided I was going to my um, try my best to let as many practitioners, make them aware of this particular area of taxation, because there's no way for me to address all of the people out there that aren't covered under the firm program. Somebody asked if there's CPE or CE. There is no CPE or CE for this session. So understand that this is a busy time. You will get a copy of the recording later. So if you need to drop because you're super busy and you were here just for the CPE or CE, there's not for this particular session. So so my particular role, as I kind of have deemed it myself, is to guide as many tax practitioners through this space as possible, because there's so many people outside of the global firms that need this help. And a lot of people think, well, the global firms get this work, and a lot of people, there's not as many people as you think that are in the global firms. The global firms handle clients specifically based on how they can get other work from them. So if you've got a small business that's expanding overseas and there's no potential for audit or consulting or corporate tax work, a global firm is not going to pick them up. Those people still need support. That company still needs support, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to get somebody that really knows what they're doing. So this has been a really awesome niche for me, and hopefully it will be one for you. So really quickly, we're going to talk about why is there a need for international tax. I just kind of mentioned it, but we're going to get in a little bit more. We're going to talk about, is there room for you? I'm going to talk specifically about how I can offer you help, as I'm operating under the assumption that most of you are tax practitioners, but if you're not, then we'll talk about that as well. Then there's also a special offer specifically for tax practitioners, and then we will do a live Q&A. I see some of you have already dropped questions in the chat. Once I get through the information here, then we're going to go to those questions. So if you have something client specific or an issue, normally I charge for consultations. This is kind of, because you're going to listen to me for about 30 minutes, I'm going to give you a free free 30-minute consultation. So feel free to drop as many questions as you need to in the chat. So we're going to just keep moving right along, and we're going to talk about why is there a need for international tax? Why is there a need for us to be in this space? And one of the things that a lot of people are not really as aware of is how many companies are moving overseas and how many people are moving overseas. This has become a substantially larger population than there has ever been. And one of the companies or the organizations that I partner with, which is International Living Magazine, there are so many people that are looking at the opportunity to retire abroad, U.S. people specifically, because of healthcare, low cost of living. Your U.S. dollar goes a lot further in other countries, and it's way more beneficial. And a lot of them are not as aware of the fact that they have continuing U.S. filing requirements. So if you're not aware, U.S. citizens and green card holders are required to pay tax and file tax returns on their worldwide income, even if they're living and working outside of the United States. That doesn't mean that they may not have a local filing obligation as well, depending on what country they're moving into. So there's going to be an increased complexity in their tax return filings as they continue to, live their lives overseas. Over 333 million companies are operating worldwide, with 44% of employees working remotely from abroad. A lot of those employees don't even realize that they have a local filing requirement, or B, a trailing US filing requirement, and they need support of tax practitioners that have the ability to serve them. There are anywhere between 5.4 and 9 million US taxpayers living overseas. That's a huge swing. The 9 million number is from the IRS. The 5.4 million is from like American taxpayers abroad. They can't get to a closer number, but what I will say is that the 9 million is the IRS's number, which is probably the better number. but that is based on US taxpayers that are using foreign addresses on their return. I exclusively work with either US taxpayers or foreign nationals in the United States. And I will say, of my expat returns, um, I'll say probably 50% of them use a foreign address, just because depending on where they are, the mail is not as stable. So if the IRS is saying 9 million just based on addresses, it might be closer to 18 million. And again, these are taxpayers that aren't covered under some sort of global mobility assignment program where they're getting the big four or one of the global firms to do their returns. These are taxpayers, they may, let's say 30% of them are covered under a program. That's 70% of these people that need tax return assistance. And only 5,315 taxpayers gave up their citizenship in 2023. The 2024 number is not available yet. Um, so that's not a lot of people. That's not a lot of people. The number is published quarterly, but we haven't gotten the total for 2024. So we're talking about a tiny sprinkling of, even if 5.4 billion is the number, little over 5,000 gave up their citizenship, meaning that there are still a ton of people that require services. So in addition to that, we've got 12.8 million green card holders, which is the 2024 estimate. It's hard. They keep saying it's hard to under to know for sure, but 12.8 million is kind of the rough number that we've got. USCIS received another 11 million green card applications in 2024 alone, and they were only able to issue 1.1 million green cards during 2024. They said they cleared about 15% of their backlog last year. That is a huge amount. So green card holders, again, they are required to report and pay tax on their worldwide income, just as if they were living and working in the United States. Something else that a lot of green card holders do not know is that even if your green card expires, this is a snippet of a green card or a permanent resident card, um, even if it expires, because there is an expiration date. So this one just says that it expires 8/21/2027, or if it expires by operation of law, meaning that the taxpayer is not in the United States enough, um, it doesn't matter. For tax purposes, you are still required to report and pay tax on your worldwide income. And a lot of times green card holders find this out after, well, they don't find out, but their family members find out after the taxpayer has passed away, and they are trying to either access their US assets, or they get hit with an estate filing issue. So I had a colleague who made the comment, and I was like, this is so perfect. It's just like, if your passport expires, that doesn't mean you're not a citizen anymore. It just means that you're not able to travel. The same is true of that green card. And so, just kind of from a capitalist perspective, as far as us making money, I make a lot of money off of the fact that people don't know this, and the fact that their families have to come after the fact to get assistance with getting their assets released from the US government, or US taxpayers that have gone overseas, they gave up their green card, or they thought they gave it up. It has to be surrendered to a US consular officer and accepted. And if that doesn't happen, you might as well be living and working in the United States. As from a tax perspective, you've also got the foreign bank account reporting, or the FBAR, because of the FACA regulations, the ability for the US government, the Internal Revenue Service specifically, to see into your foreign bank and financial institutions to identify whether or not you are filing. These are bigger issues. The penalty for failing to file an FBAR, there is no statute of limitations. It's a $10,000 statutory penalty, which is adjusted annually for inflation. This year, it's about $26,000. That's per delinquent filing. Again, there is no statute of limitations. So these people really need our support. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of the things, some of the ways that we're able to provide that support. So that's just for the US expats, the US citizens and the green card holders living outside of the United States. We've also got foreign nationals in the United States. These are 2024 numbers again. Immigrant visas, there were 281,000 issued in, these are just issued. These aren't people that are holding them. These are the number of visas that were issued. 281,000 immigrant visas, 5.2 million non-immigrant visas, another 4.1 million B1, B2 visitor visa and border crossing cards. The B1, B2 visa is people coming into the US typically for short-term business purposes. But if they're working in the United States, they still have filing requirements. If they're earning money in the United States, they still have filing requirements. And then another almost 450,000 international students. Some of these people, some of these taxpayers, especially like the international students and even the B1, B2 visa filers, they still have filing requirements. They still have returns that need to get done. and they need to get them done appropriately. I see a lot of issues with international students filing as full year residents and taking the standard deduction. You can't do that. You're exempt from the substantial presence test. You have to file a Form 1040-NR. In some cases, if you're an Indian student specifically, you may be able to take advantage of the standard deduction, but you need somebody that's going to be able to help you walk through that. In addition to that, so we've got our US taxpayers overseas, we've got our foreign nationals in the United States, we've got our US green card holders, we've also got accidental Americans. This is a group of taxpayers that are American because their parents are American or they were born in the United States, but they've never lived in the United States in some cases, if their parents were US citizens. Um, they may not have a social security number. Some of them don't speak the language. Guess what? They are still required to report their worldwide incomes to the United States. They are still required to pay tax on their worldwide income. And you might say, well, just renounce your citizenship. It costs $2,350, and you must be in compliance for the last 5 years to do so. So a lot of that is cost prohibitive because coming into compliance for the last 5 years, depending on how much money you make, depending on what if you own your own business overseas and it's a controlled foreign corporation, that's going to double the cost of your tax return preparation right there, at least it should. And then you've got 5 years to do that. Plus, you've got to pay the $2,350. If you've got net worth of over $2 million at the time of renunciation, you could continue to have a filing requirement for 10 years under the expatriation provisions of 877 Cap A. So this can get really, really complicated. The accidental Americans specifically have come together as a group and tried to fight against their requirement to continue to file. However, the law still stands currently and they still have a filing requirement. So some of them will come into compliance, some of them won't. I really don't deal with a lot of taxpayers that I consider accidental Americans. These are people that just don't live or have never lived in the United States, or they left when they were 18, not realizing that they had received citizenship, and did not renounce. Most of the people that come my way are U.S. people that just did not realize they had a continued filing requirement. However, so my business is about 10 years old, where I've been doing this on my own. Um, but like I said, I've been in this space for 25 years. What I'm starting to see is there's a lot more education to the layperson of the fact that they have to file. They just may not they may have chosen not to file. Another thing I'll notice is someone who's been an expat myself, expats talk and sometimes they get advice from other expats. So it's best, and this is something I talk about in a course that I teach that I'm going to tell you about a little later, is the best way kind of to market to let people know that they need you is to go out into those expat forums and say, hey, let me help you, let me answer some of your questions. But like I said, we'll talk about it in a little bit. So is there room for you? Obviously, we just talked about that, as it relates to the Big Four. A common misconception is that the Big Four will have this work or the Big Four gets all of this work. The Big Four does not. I mean, and again, I'm someone who has been in the Big Four, worked in the Big Four for a very long time. um, they don't necessarily want they take expat work. They don't necessarily want expat work. There has to be something else there. It's a very what else is in it for me type of situation. They don't just want the expat work because it's not necessarily an area where you can build a lot more out of it. The price is the price is the price. A lot of times, if you're doing global work, you have to work with a foreign firm and you've got to deal with their pricing and making sure that you're competitive. So the margins can be very slim. They don't necessarily want this type of work unless there's something else there or it's just a name. So, if you're working for a company like a Google or a Coca-Cola or something like that, you want that name on your roster, yes. But as far as the actual work itself, not so much. Then you've got to deal with, okay, let's say the person is under a program. And this is I get a lot of work this way too. So they're under a program and then the program is over, but their issues haven't stopped and they still need support. But the firm, because of their independence requirements, they may not be able to continue to serve them. So they have to kick them out of the program and they're going to need some help. In addition to that, there's an overall accounting shortage. There's about 1.3 million US accountants, and that is everything from bookkeepers to auditors to consultants. We've got active CPAs, certified public accountants specifically, is a little under 700,000. IRS enrolled agents is hovering around 60,000. And of that, we've got about 750,000 of the US accountants total that are tax return preparers, This is based on the number of P10s that the IRS has issued. So we've got about 750,000. If you remember from the first slide that I had, we're talking about maybe 9 million US expats alone, plus another 12 million green card holders. And I include green card holders because a lot of them still have ties to their foreign countries. There are issues that sometimes, and somebody put this in the chat, and we're going to talk about this in the Q&A. They don't think about the fact that, okay, you're a green card holder, you live in the United States, your kids live in the United States, but you've got children or you've got parents that live overseas. What happens when you pass away and you need to leave an inheritance to them? What happens if your family member passes away and they're leaving something to you? What are the tax regulations? If they're not a US person, a US citizen or green card holder themselves, let's say you're married to a foreign national of the United States, you're living outside of the country, you met a person, you get married, and you live a life together, you cannot unlimitedly transfer your estate to a non-citizen, non-resident of the United States as you could, even though it's your spouse, as you could a U.S. citizen spouse or a U.S. green card holder spouse or a U.S. resident alien spouse. The rules are very different. So even understanding things like that, we've got very deep deep roots in this space. On top of that, the US is short approximately 340,000 accountants. So it's a lot easier to pull a tax accountant into another space if they've got reciprocal knowledge. So I know when I started, everybody had to go into audit first. I did not. I was always considered a rebel because I said there's no need for me to go into audit. I know I don't want to do audit. I know I want to do tax. I'm not going into audit. It's just a waste of my time and yours. And I remember there was very much there were arms in the air. Everybody was up in arms because I didn't want to do a 2-year audit rotation first, but a lot of people did. And so if you have those skills, if you have the ability to audit or consult in addition to taxation, then you might get pulled. And again, when we're talking about tax accountants, we're talking about corporate, we're talking about employee benefit, we're talking about not-for-profit, we're talking about state and local sales and use. So when we whittle all the way down to expat tax, that's a very small part of a very small part of a very rapidly shrinking group of accountants. And I will say this also, as the US talks about going into a recession, this is a very recession proof. If there is a recession proof part of the tax code to be in, this is it. And I will say the last recession we were in, I think it was under George W. Bush. It was a long time ago, but I know I was working at Deloitte. And I remember specifically that the Global Mobility Tax Department itself is what kept Deloitte from having to cut our staff. Because of the fact, one of the things that happens when we hit a recession is people start bringing their people home. So all of a sudden they're bringing everybody home. There's a whole bunch of flurry. There's a lot of consultations that are needed. We're bringing everybody home, but we've still got trailing payroll responsibilities from an expat tax perspective. We still have trailing filing responsibilities from an expat tax perspective. So they brought all these people home. There was all this consulting we did under the global mobility umbrella, and we were able to continue the tax return and payroll work. Guess what? The economy turns around, we send everybody back out, and more money is still there to be made. So this is just a really good space for us. In addition, no matter how you feel about the current administration, there are a lot of people that are very unhappy and they are looking to move overseas, especially if some of the Social Security cuts start to happen. That may be the only viable option for some people is to move overseas. We've got countries like Mexico, Costa Rica, Spain, Portugal, Panama, Malaysia that are actively and aggressively recruiting US expats to come and retire in those countries. And a lot of people are taking them up on that option and they are looking for tax return support. We would need about 126,500 openings for accountants for the next decade to eat into that shortage, and that the work is just not there right now. So, like I said, in this particular space, which is a subset of a subset of a subset, we've got a lot of opportunity. So, what potential offerings could you have? You can always provide straight U.S. tax return preparation services to individuals. Once you find out your particular how you can get in, then it's a really good space to be in. Once you just kind of dig in, it's almost like you have to dig a little hole for yourself. And once you do, then the work just starts coming to you. That's one of the things, like I said, we're going to talk about a course that I offer where we can go through this. And one of the things we talk about specifically is how to market yourself. I always say if you have no idea and you're in the United States, or even if you're currently living overseas, if you're currently living overseas, I would say get in touch with your expat tax community and just let them know what kind of work you do, and that will be a good feeding point. If you're in the United States and you want to get into this area, the quickest, fastest, cheapest way to get involved in the expat tax business is go to whatever the largest school is near you, university, not even the largest school, just go to a university near you, go to their international tax advisor and offer your assistance. Let them know you can talk to their students about the expat or the filing requirements. This is foreign nationals coming into the United States, so international students specifically. Not only does that feed you, because one, it helps the international student advisor because they don't have to deal with the tax stuff. They can kind of unload that to you. Two, you've got a whole bunch of clients now that are there for you. And people think of international students, you think of kind of freshmen, sophomores. Some of them are graduate students, some of them are medical students and researchers and things like that. And then the longer they stay in the United States, you've got more people that you can provide support. Also, certifying acceptance agent services where you help issue individual taxpayer identification numbers. That's something that the IRS I-10 unit needs help with, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then streamline filings and delinquent FBAR filings. Taxpayers that are realizing under right now that they have a tax return filing responsibility and they need some support. You know, even going back to the international students, when someone comes on an F1 visa, they're exempt from the substantial presence test, meaning they file a 1040-NR. Once they get their H-1B visa or their green card or whatever, they've got a dual status filing year, and then they've got full year filing responsibilities. And you don't necessarily need to keep these clients forever, but you definitely can keep them during those transitional years and help them to maintain compliance and help them, even if it's by providing additional consulting, helping people if they're thinking about retiring overseas and helping them after they've moved overseas and helping them with their issues. There's just a whole lot. Look, I take care of my three little girls, and this is all that I do. And I would love to bring more people into this space. So why are we here today? How can I help? I can help you in a couple of ways. So I've got live and on-demand webinars. Many of you guys have already participated in them. They're on my website. It's tax season right now, so the live ones are curbed, unless you want to see me on CPA Academy. But there's also a lot. There's about 25, between 25 and 27 different on-demand webinars that you can access on many different topics: tax treaties, income sourcing, dual status preparation, foreign national specifics, expat tax specifics, and things like that. If you need a certifying acceptance agent for an I-10 application, I can provide support in that area as well. If you need someone that's close to you, because sometimes people want to come in, they don't want to let go of their passport, go to the IRS's website. There's an I-10 section, and you can search by your area to find a certifying acceptance agent or an acceptance agent near you. I do them for a lot of different people. This is also going back to how can you serve when I mentioned being a certifying acceptance agent. I work for accounting firms. So there are accounting firms. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. There are accounting firms here where all I do for them is come in and do their I-10 applications. The application itself is probably about 30 minutes. Plus, you have to do an in-person interview or you have to do a Zoom call, but you have to have the person's passport in your hand, which is why a lot of people want to go to someone locally so that they can just show them the passport without getting rid of it. But like I said, there are accounting firms where that's all I do for them is I come in, I certify the passport, I prepare the application, and they cut me a check on the way out. And the whole thing might take less than 15 minutes, plus another 30 minutes to prepare the paperwork ahead of time. So that's a really good way, one, that I can help you or that you can help yourself. Also, if you're going to be doing foreign national tax returns, it really, really helps to be able to certify the applications so that you don't have to get them to somebody else. They can just do everything with you and you can be a one-stop shop. I also provide peer support. So I help taxpayers with, or taxpayers themselves with consultations. Tax practitioners, I also help with consultations. The consultations for tax practitioners, they cost the same, but for tax practitioners, they tend to use more. So for taxpayers themselves, I do a 30-minute consultation, and then if they hire me within 30 days, then the consultation fee is applied to the tax return preparation costs. For tax practitioners, it gives you up to two 30-minute calls and an hour of research. So a lot of times people will call. I actually had a call this morning where they will call and we'll talk about a couple different clients, and then they'll split it up and then they'll call back and talk about a couple different clients. And we can also do tax return reviews. If you want me to just review the tax return review, it'll be two reviews. It's slightly more than a consultation, but it gives you 2 full reviews of the tax return with review notes and 2 calls. And then I've also got the monthly Haynes Global Tax Expert VIP calls. So this is actually there's 2 pieces to this. We have a monthly call the last Monday of every month where we talk through round robin a bunch of issues. It's an evening call, so we go until everybody's questions are answered, which normally takes about an hour. A little bit longer sometimes. I also come presenting something based on whatever the topic, kind of the hot tax expat topic is that month. So I come with information on that. So for example, if we're going into last year around the holidays, I'll say that our November call last year we talked about the December 15th extension. I provided them with the verbiage for the extension. Where do you file the extension and things like that, so that if they had any clients that qualified for the December 15th extension, they were able to get those in. Well, that was actually in September for the October 15th, going into the October 15th call. Each person in the VIP group also gets 3 one-on-one calls with me a month. I always tell them to go ahead and book those calls as quickly as possible, because if you've ever tried to get a call with me, I got to keep my call blocks small. Otherwise, I'm on the phone all day and I can't get any work done. But I'm super flexible with them. Like I have some people that are from the West Coast or that are overseas, so I move their calls around to accommodate their time. So that's how I specifically can help you and how I'm available to help. I also have an intensive course, which is a 3-day course where we talk about all things expat tax. So by the time we're done, you should be able to start your own practice if you don't have one. And if you do have one, then you should be able to intensify your ability to serve those clients. So day 1, we talk about expats. We talk about all things expats, including, and we also go through forms. There's a case study at the end of every day. At the end of day 3, there's 3 different case studies. So one related to day 1, one day 2, and day 3. The second day, we talk about foreign nationals and all things related to foreign national taxation. And on day 3, we recap days 1 and 2, and then we talk about topics that relate both to expats and foreign nationals. We also talk about hypothetical tax and tax equalizations, and we talk about foreign entities, so controlled foreign corporations, PFICs, foreign trusts, and partnerships. We talk about gift and estate tax issues, and then also talk about ways to market. That's actually between gift and estate tax and comprehensive case studies. And then we do those 3 case studies. So I wanted to show you really quickly a video that describes the experience of the intensive. It's very small. Tends to be a small group. Hold on just a second, because I can hear the audio, but I don't know that you guys can. Okay, it should be coming up. Here it is. My internet is slow. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the video, but that's okay. I'll send out a link to it later. It's just showing. I cleared the cache out all my stuff, and now all my stuff isn't working. Okay, so okay, so I just took a couple of the reviews from, and you can always go to my website, which is hayneshelp.com, to see some feedback on the 3-day seminar. So it's available. That I think is the quickest, fastest way to get you up to speed. So my offer, as I mentioned, and then we're going to go into the Q&A. So the course itself is 24 hours of credit. We've got 5 different case studies, real-time Q&A, and I've valued it based on what I charge for all of that information is $9,600. So the price is cut to $2,500, and then you can add the VIP package, which is the recording of all the videos and a VIP box with a whole bunch of cool stuff in it for an extra $500. But because you guys took the time to hang out with me during tax season, and I so appreciate it, I'm giving you a $1,500 discount. So the $1,500, this price is the live session. The virtual is slightly less just because the live session comes with meals, and it comes with, you've got a space that has to be paid for. I mean, there's overhead, right? And then we have a really big dinner, really nice dinner on the middle of the second day. But so this is the live price. The virtual is slightly less. And then the VIP package would be on top of that as well. So if you're interested in that, there's going to be a QR code towards the end. Now, has come to my attention is some people, because the dates are set for the live and the virtual, there's a live in May and then there's a virtual in June, and then there's another live in November. Some people can't do that, but they want the information. So I have created, and this is the first time, a on-demand version of the intensive. You do not get the credits and you don't get the Q&A benefits, but you do get access to the recordings, and you have access to the recordings indefinitely. And so that's just a one-time fee of $750. Now, also, I am quite aware that everything is super crazy right now, and I'm a big fan of a payment plan. So if you need a payment plan, just shoot me an email and I'll get you one. Make sure that you let me know, because this deal is only good until the close of business on Monday. So if you need help with that, just send me an email and I'll let you know. Whenever you start the payment plan, it will allow you to sign up. So let's say if you're on a payment plan and you make your first payment and you want to come to the session in May, you just have to make the first payment and then you'll be enrolled in the session in May. Just make sure when you're going to check out, you use the coupon code DEAL. The on demand is just a fixed price, so there's no discount for that. It's just a fixed price. But if you need help with the payment plan for that, just let me know. Okay, let's go into our Q&A. I'm going to turn my camera back on. I'm going to leave this up in case you want to scan. And let's see, we've got a bunch of different questions in the chat. So let's see what we've got. Okay, scrolling up. So we're talking about income resourced for a treaty for China, US, for a US citizen who resides in Canada. So the treaty resourcing, for those of you that are not familiar with it, is a way that, sorry, I turned my camera back, turned it on so I can see it. So treaty resourcing is a way that if you are taking foreign tax credit is only available for taxpayers that have foreign source income. Foreign source income is based on where you are doing the work, not based on who is making the payment. So if you are a US person who is working in a foreign country, but you're working for a US entity, that's still foreign source income. Vice versa, if you are working for a foreign company, but you are doing work in the United States, that's US source income, even though it's foreign paid, okay? So there are certain situations where you can resource income, meaning take income that was previously US source and basically reclass it as foreign. And the reason for that is in certain situations, these are countries where they're taxing you on your worldwide income anyway, and it prevents that double tax hit. So if I am let's just say I'm working, this taxpayer, this participant says China. So if you are in China and you are working for a company that's based in China, but you are also doing some work in the United States. Let's say you came to the US for a month for a business trip and you had to do work in the month for a month. So 1/12 of your income is US source and the other 11/12 is going to be foreign source. With treaty resourcing, you are allowed to take that 1/12 of your income and make it foreign source. The way you do that is, so you don't have to attach an actual income tax treaty position like you would in most cases. You will just split the income. So 11/12 will go on your regular 11/16, and it would be income with general limitation income, so your wages. You would run the foreign tax credit and you would put the associated tax related to that income on that 11/16. Then you're going to attach a separate form 11/16 just with that 1 month in my example's worth of income and the 1 month's worth of Chinese tax. And then you would take a foreign tax credit that way. So essentially you're going to get a foreign tax credit on 100% of your income. You're just going to have 11/12 under general limitation. You're going to check the box to that 11/16 that is income resourced by the treaty, and then that's how you would get the foreign tax credit on that particular amount of income. So hopefully that answered your question. If not, let me know. Okay, second question is US estate tax for non-resident US citizens. Okay, I think I understand what you're asking. So is there a US estate tax for a non-resident that is a US citizen? The answer to that would be yes. It does not matter from the US perspective where you live. As long as you are a citizen or a green card holder, you're going to be subject to tax just as if you were living and working in the United States, but you are also entitled to the benefits as if you were living and working in the United States as well. So it doesn't matter if you're a non-resident as long as you're a citizen. Now, if you're a non-resident, non-citizen of the United States, you could still get hit with a US estate tax if you have US domiciled assets. So it's possible. You also have to worry about, this is something I kind of talk about, I go into in detail in the intensive, If you are a if you are in a domicile state, then it is also possible that you could be hit with a state estate tax in addition to the federal estate tax. So knowing if you are living in a domicile state or a state that tax based on your residency or presence is important as well. I actually have a book I wrote on that, an expat state tax guide. I need to update it this year. The one that I have out now is for 2023. The information is still pretty good, but I'm going to update it to take the tax tables out because a lot of people are looking for me to publish it every year, and it's a lot of information to go through for information that only changes very minutely. So if you are interested, the 2023 is out there. The evergreen will be out sometime at the end of this year. Okay, another question. The client is US and South African citizenship, and they lend their father roughly 1 million rands to enable his parents to buy into an assisted living facility. Minimal interest based on interest rates last February. The loan is forgiven at father's death. Is this reported anywhere on the Form 3520? Okay, so there's a lot of things going on. First and foremost, the taxpayer has dual citizenship. A lot of times with dual citizenship, it does not allow us to use the income tax treaty. I'm probably gonna have some more information about this one, and I think you left me your email address in here. Um, if the father lent him money and the loan was forgiven, then that's probably going to be treated as cash. So if the amount, I don't know the rand to dollar exchange rate off the top of my head, but if the amount that was left on the loan was over $100,000, it would probably be listed as a gift and reportable as a gift on the Form 3520. So the answer to the question is probably it's just going to depend on how much of the loan was left unpaid at the time of the father's death, because that would be just treated like a cash gift and it would be then reported on the Form 3520. So here's another question or comment. I currently work in this market, so I'm always looking for education and learning opportunities. As an enrolled agent, I have kept my education in place, but there is a shortage of classes that focus on cross-border US, Canada, and international and discussion groups to discuss these topics. I would love to be able to chat with you. Okay, so this is someone specifically about Canada. For this case, I would say the intensive would probably be good for two reasons, especially the in-person, because you're going to connect with other people in the space. If not, if the timing doesn't work for you, I would definitely recommend the VIP calls, which are monthly. There is a month, it's like a monthly subscription, or you can prepay for the year. The the um, the VIP calls come with a ticket to the intensive. So if you feel that you've already done what you need to, or you already learned what you needed to. I also have a 2.0 intensive. The QR code just takes you to all of my intensive options. So the 1.0, which is the regular intensive, is there. Then the 2.0, which is it's more entity focused. That's a 1-day class. This is the end of July. There is no discount offered for that one, but you do get, I believe, it's 3 months of the VIP with the intensive as well. So that's something to be aware of. U.S. citizen renunciation for Canadian residents. So this is a question that's in here as well. So if you renounce your citizenship, you're going to have to give your U.S. passport up to a U.S. consular officer. And once they accept it, then you have to make sure that you file the Form 8854, which is your expatriation statement. If your income is less than, or if your net worth is over 2 million, then you may have to continue to file as a non-resident alien for 10 years. If it's less than that and your income tax is less than an amount that's an index for inflation, you file for the last 5 years and so on and so forth, then you wouldn't necessarily have to file the 8854 for 10 years, but you would have to file it in the final year. It doesn't matter where you live. Again, from the U.S. perspective, the process is going to be the same. So, so you're just, it's just going to depend on those thresholds. So here's another question. How do you ensure that overseas clients, particularly new ones, pay you? So this is a good question. This is more of a practice question, but it's a good question. So the question, so I normally do 50% upfront to engage. So they sign the engagement letter, they sign whatever consent forms I have, and then I do a 50% deposit. This time of year is really good because I don't e-file anything until I have all the signed e-file forms back and the balance due. So if they don't pay me, I don't e-file. So that's kind of how I have managed to get payment. I don't start until I get that first 50%, and I don't file until I get the last 50%. Now, if we're doing a streamlined filing or something like that that has to be done on paper, I paper file those returns for them for two reasons. One, to ensure that I'm not giving up a tax return without getting payment. And two, because a lot of times when I've had streamlined filing, they're not filed properly, or even any kind of paper filing. I just file it myself because I have a client issue now where they did a paper filing. They had filed late. They didn't realize they had to file on paper. They received the returns on time, but they didn't realize they had to file paper because it was after December 15th, and they never filed. So they put 2 years worth of returns in one package. And I'll let you guess, 1 year was processed, the other one wasn't. And so now we're going back and forth with the IRS. We're gonna have to refile because they didn't do it properly. So if it's an electronic file, long answer to a short question, you just make sure that you get the payment before you hit the button to send. If it's paper, just make sure that they send it to you and you paper file it, and then you have control. You send the signature page, have them send you the signature pages, and just don't give them the option to file it on their own. If they do file it on their own and they stiff you, I mean, it is going to happen every now and then. I have one client that I just wrote off. I mean, I gave her return 3 years ago, and she told me she was trying, she had an economic downturn herself and she wasn't able to do it. So sometimes it's going to happen, but for the most part, just make sure that you get paid before you file anything. So someone asked to clarify the discount price of $1,000 is for the live virtual intensive, the in person. Okay, so it's $1,500 off. So the price is 2,500 for the in person. So if you do it without the VIP, it will be $1,000 to attend the in person. And if you want to do the VIP, then that would take you to 1,500. The on demand is slightly less. I think it's $500 less. So that would take your price for the on demand down to $500 without the VIP. Which the VIP, the most valuable part of it is you get access to the recordings indefinitely. So you have access to all the information that would be available to you. It's on a private part of my YouTube channel, so you would have access to watch and rewatch them as long as you need to. Here's another question. Besides getting the EA and CPA licenses, what other licenses should I invest in? For example, what if a client needs both the US and French tax return completed? Would you have to partner with a French tax preparer, or would a CPA prepare the return? So for me, I only do the US returns just because I'm not familiar with the filing requirements for both the United States and those foreign countries. And I want to stick to focusing on the US. The US is enough to have to learn, to try to learn from about another country as well. But I would say another license that I would look into is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. That would be another license I would look at investing in, specifically because a lot of times our clients, especially the international clients, a lot of our international clients, they have to go through a lot of steps and a lot of people to get to us. So once they get to us, they cling on to us pretty tightly, right? And because of that, they want us to be their go-to for everything. So for me, I'm not a financial planner. I work with a financial planner that has a lot of international clients. So she's able to guide them. But if I wanted to expand and be more of a robust tax practitioner, instead of expanding into another country's returns, I would expand into financial planning for them. Now, that also depends. So I do have colleagues that live overseas. So if you're living in Germany and you get familiar with the German tax system, then maybe that's a better offer, an option for you. But for me, I just partner with foreign tax practitioners that live overseas, and there are groups that you can join, like Abacus, but their stuff is online, where you can go and look for another tax practitioner in another country, so that you can help your clients get support that way. I normally guide my clients to someone if they need help, but I don't do that work for them. No. Okay, another question. A US couple wants to move to Portugal on a visa. Their income consists of a monthly pension because they were former teachers in the US. Do their pensions become taxable in Portugal? Do they report and pay tax on it in Portugal? I know you should not be here. Well, I'm glad you're here, but this is a good way. This is somebody from my VIP call, and we're supposed to have a call. But yes, so their pension would become taxable in Portugal, it's going to depend on what kind of visa they're on. There is a visa, I think it's the NHR visa, where your income is tax exempt for 10 years, I want to say. So so if they're on that visa, it would be tax exempt, but then once they get through that exempt status, it would be taxable. Um so yes, it would be taxable in Portugal. It's just when is it going to be taxable in Portugal? So thank you, my friend. Okay, here's another question. My client renounced his citizenship effective August this year, but his spouse did not. Let me remind you, this year we will need to file a joint return through August and separate ones for the rest of the year. No, he said this is per DHS. It doesn't sound right because it's not right. They would be married filing separate all year. And so the spouse is going to be married filing separate full year. For him, he's going to be married filing he would be married filing separate dual status. So for the part of the year he gave up his citizenship, he would be a resident, and for the rest he would be a non-resident alien. But there is no we file joint for part of the year. Either you're joint all year or you're separate all year. And in this case, they would have to be separate all year, period, because she's going to be a full year resident and he's going to be a dual status resident. Okay. All right. We've got another question, and we've only got about 10 minutes left. So if you guys have more, put them in here. Can someone without a U.S. personal income tax experience or background start this tax business? Absolutely. So I actually have hired someone this year that didn't have a tax practice, or excuse me, tax background, because of the fact that they were moving overseas and they wanted to expand into this business. So my advice for them while they were still in the United States, and I think we're kind of past that now because it's the end of March, is to volunteer with VITA, Voluntary Income Tax Assistance, which is the IRS's program for low income taxpayers. And so she did that. She worked at VITA last year. You can volunteer. I don't know if they do it past March, but I know they do it early January, February. It allows you to get training from the Internal Revenue Service on tax return basics specifically. So that by the time she and I came together and I started talking about what made expat taxes different, she was able to understand because she knew what the regular income tax was. So I would say yes. I would say start with something like a VITA, or even, I am a huge fan of the H&R Blocks and the Jackson Hewitts. I knew I wanted to be a tax practitioner when I was like 15 years old. I'm a super weird person. My dad made me do my first tax return. I started working when I was like 12, and he made me do my first tax return, and I was hooked ever since then. So I knew pretty young that I wanted to be in the tax space, and I also knew wanted to do something with international business, but I couldn't kind of put those two things together. And so going to like a Jackson Hewitt and working during a tax season or an H&R Block, I worked at Jackson Hewitt during um, my college years, and then I also worked at Jackson Hewitt again as in between the time when Anderson went down before I started working at Ernst and Young. I worked at Jackson Hewitt again. So I would say going somewhere like that would be a good opportunity to get your foot in the door and just learn about general taxation. And you also can just there's a lot of information out there. The IRS has a lot of webinars that they host. They have a YouTube channel. They have more snippets on there. And then if you just want to do a lot of self study, then I cannot recommend anything more than IRS Publication 17. Publication 17? Yes, Publication 17. That is, I mean, when I was teaching at Jackson Hewitt, that was their Bible. Publication 17. For expat tax specifically, you've got Publication 54 and Publication 519. One is for expats, one is for foreign nationals, which will give you everything you need. You can use those. A lot of my intensive talks about some of the stuff that is in Publication 519 and 54. Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions before we jump off because I have not had lunch yet and I'm very, very hungry, but I also want to be here and answer your questions. How do you price out international tax returns, and is there a minimum fee you suggest? I get this question a lot. I say yes, yes, and more yes. Um, I charge my base tax return price is $3,500, and some people kind of balk at that. but I always say you're not charging for the ability to, for me, you're charging for the fact that I can get your tax return right. I can get your tax return done quickly, and I can get questions answered in an efficient way and in a way that will keep us both from getting penalties or prison time in some cases. Now, I will say if you are not at that price point, my goal is to get you to that price point because we need to understand that we are offering a very specialized service. Whenever I get people that come to me and say, "Well, my tax return is simple." If it was simple, you wouldn't have gotten here. I mean, I do some some advertising, but for the most part, a lot of people hear from me because they're looking specifically for someone that can help them, and I'm here to help. Also, and I say this to people all the time, especially people that are afraid of charging. There are people you can buy the same thing at Target that you can at Walmart, but some people are going to go to Target because they like Target better, knowing that they're going to pay more. They want the experience, and what you're offering them is you're offering them your personal experience. You don't have to have a Target level experience. You can be a Walmart if you want to. There's nothing wrong with Walmart. I love Walmart, but what I'm saying is you charge a price that makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel like you are getting what you are worth. But if it's less than $1,000 for an expat return, I think you're charging way too little unless you are working specifically, um, if you are looking specifically at international students. Somebody said I missed what you said about return pricing. I charge 3,500. If we start talking delinquent, 5,000 to start. If I'm talking to a company, so if it is a company that's moving people overseas, it's 10,000 retainer before we even get going, and then you eat away at it, but it's a non-refundable retainer. So anytime we start talking delinquent, whether it's past due returns, delinquent F bars, it's $5,000 to start. For a regular tax return, it's 3,500. Once we started adding in PFIX, 5471s, foreign trust, stuff like that, the price is going up. The price is going up. 100%. Now, the only exception to that is if you're working with international students, and that's because you're playing the long game, right? So you want that volume in. You might charge them less, but you're going to get more out of them because you're going to get referrals from them. You're building a relationship with the school with them, and then you're also going to hopefully when they transition into that H-1B visa or that L-1 visa, you might be able to charge them $1,000 later because their returns are getting more complex. Okay, here's another question, and this might be the last one. There's a citizen married to someone from the Netherlands and just got her green card and started to work as an artist doing commissions here in the US. From the day the taxpayer gets their green card, then they are a citizen. So let's say they got their citizenship today, so it's March 20th, then they would be a non-resident alien up until this point, and then they would be a resident alien for the rest of the year and report their worldwide income for the rest of the year. That would also mean any foreign bank account reportings would have to be included there as well. Okay, one more. Will I send the outline, including the pricing recommendations? I'm going to send a copy of, everybody's going to get a copy of the recording. You'll also get the handouts, and then you will get several reminders that this offer is good through Monday. So you'll be getting email after, I'll only email you once a day, but just letting you know that this offer is available and don't miss out. I'm gonna close right now and just say I am super super passionate about getting as many people into this space as possible. My website is Haynes Help. That is what I'm here to do, to provide support to tax practitioners as they move into this space. There are a lot of people out there that need us. There are a lot of people out there that are filing their own tax returns, that are not filing at all, that are getting hit with FBAR penalties and other penalties because they don't know what they're doing. And I'm really, really here to help. So if you can't necessarily take advantage of the intensive, look at some of the other stuff that I have available. I'm here to help. Or if you just have a bunch of questions that we didn't get to, book a consultation with me and let me kind of help you. Let me be your your firm positions as I had at Deloitte, because I really am very very passionate about helping as many expats. I can't help you all. I got 3 little kids and they want me at everything that they do, but I can help as many of you guys as I possibly can so that you guys can build successful practices and help your kids and your grandkids or your fur babies if you have them. So thank you guys again. I know this was a really difficult time for a lot of us because we are in the heat of tax season, but I wanted to make sure that I got this information out to you. You guys enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Reach out to me if you have any questions, specifically if you need a payment plan, and I am here to help. You guys have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much. Bye, guys.